Why is the Pentagon rushing to move a slow-floating city halfway across the world at a burn rate of millions per day? In an era of stealth bombers that can strike anywhere on Earth and Mars, why do we still rely on these massive assets? A U.S. supercarrier from the South China Sea to the Persian Gulf isn't just a road trip, it is a logistical nightmare. We are talking about a massive operation that burns through more than $6.5 million every single day. But here's why they do it. A bomber strikes and leaves, but a * carrier strike group stays. It parks 70 fighter jets off the coast of an adversary and leaves them there. It creates a no-fly zone that a bomber simply cannot maintain. But how exactly do U.S. attack operations and logistical support actually work? Part 1. The naval pivot. The chess pieces are moving. We are tracking the largest naval redistribution since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. The Pentagon is emptying the Pacific to flood the Persian Gulf. But where are all the U.S.'s nuclear carriers stationed when not at * war? And how many will travel to Iran and the Middle East? On paper, the number is 11, nuclear payload supercarriers, divided into two distinct classes. First, the NIMS class. These are the 10 workhorses of the fleet commissioned between 1975 and 2009. Second, the Ford class. Right now, there is only one. The U.S. Gerald are bored. This new generation uses electromagnetic catapults to launch jets faster. Well, let's look at this scenario. What happened when the Department of War gives a green signal? The USS Abraham * Lincoln Carrier Strike Group is typically stationed in the South China Sea to deter Chinese vessels. However, upon receiving flash priority orders, it can sprint to the Middle East in just a week. It has to transit the Malacca Strait, the choke point between Malaysia and Indonesia. Meanwhile, the U.S. can launch another nuclear aircraft carrier. The USS George H.W. Bush will depart from Norfolk, Virginia, likely crossing the Atlantic to enter the Mediterranean. This leaves the Pacific dangerously thin, with only * the USS Ronald Reagan or its replacement, the George Washington, potentially available in Japan. The plan is to have 2 full strike groups off the coast of Iran within 10 days to form a pincer deterrent. Here's part 2, the missile logistics. Following the first strike against Iran's nuclear bunkers, the U.S. had actually removed 60% of its missile defense systems from Qatar in the Middle East. So how many missiles are being transported from different parts of the world to fix this? The answer is fill * the sky with these Globemasters. The U.S. military needs a massive airlift of roughly 4 to 6 Patriot batteries and components for ATH battery. This involves over 300 heavy transport flights. But here's the detail most people miss. The U.S. needs a flood of aging Patriot missiles to be pulled from stockpiles in Germany and Japan. Why move old missiles? Because they have the perfect cheap solution for Iran's thousands of Shahed drones. Commanders are hoarding the brand new scarce PAC-3 kinetic interceptors for the hypersonic * and ballistic missile threats. The military is clearing out the Cold War inventory to save the modern tech for the big one. And part 3 is the cost of war. What is the cost involved in this massive transfer? War is expensive, but moving an army is a fortune. First, the ships. Operating a single carrier strike group costs between $6.5 million and $9 million per day. That covers nuclear maintenance, jet fuel, and food for 7,000 sailors. Second, the ammo. A single THAAD interceptor costs $12.7 million. The SM-3 * missiles on the destroyers cost $28 million per shot. If you combine the airlift fuel, the naval surge, and the pre-positioned ammo, this 30-day deterrence operation has a burn rate exceeding $1.5 billion, and that is before a single shot is fired. In part 4, we'll look at what is the logistic nightmare involved in sustaining this force. The nightmare is access. As of January 14, 2026, we have reports of a partial evacuation of the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar due to rising tensions. This is the nightmare * scenario. If Qatar or the UAE deny the U.S. Navy access to their ports for fear of Iranian retaliation, the carrier strike group loses its pit stop. The Lincoln is nuclear, but her escort destroyers need diesel every 3 days. Without a friendly port, the U.S. Navy must create a steel chain of supply, classed oilers stretching 7,000 meters back to Diego Garcia or Guam. Now if that chain breaks, the most powerful fleet in history becomes a floating museum. We cannot ignore this part. 5. The air power. Alternative. But what happens if * the carriers don't get there in time? Can the U.S. fight without its Navy? The answer is yes. Focusing only on the slow-moving ships is a mistake. The United States holds an ace up its sleeve that doesn't need to wait for a clear shipping lane. Even without a carrier strike group, the U.S. can deliver precision strikes for weeks to come. This is the domain of Air Force Global Strike Command. They can deploy the big 3 strategic bombers anywhere in the world in just 24 hours. First, you have the B-2 Spirit * stealth bomber. This is the door kicker. It is the only aircraft in history capable of taking off in Missouri, flying non-stop to Iran, penetrating the most advanced air defense networks undetected, and dropping massive bunker busters on deep underground facilities. Second, the B-1B Lancer, known as the Bone. This supersonic heavy hitter carries the largest payload of any U.S. bomber. It can dash in at high speed and low altitude to deliver massive barrages of cruise missiles or satellite-guided bombs to clear the asterisk path. And finally, the B-52 Stratofortress. It may look old, but do not underestimate it. It acts as a flying missile truck capable of launching long-range cruise missiles from hundreds of miles away while outside the reach of Iranian air defenses. Let's take a look at how this works. The first line attack involves the B-2 stealth bomber moving in to destroy high V-value air defense systems like the famous S-400 Triumph and other surface-to-air air missiles, effectively disabling them by using its stealth asterisk technology. Next, the B-1 Lancer flies at a very low altitude towards enemy targets to take out older anti-aircraft guns and missiles. This clears the way for conventional aircraft like the B-52 Stratofortress, which can then sweep in to destroy any critical infrastructure without facing anti-aircraft threats. This is the reason they need both the B-2 stealth bomber and conventional bombers, as there are only 19 units of the B-2 Spirit in service to date. But let's move back to the Super Carrier Strike Asterisk group. A typical carrier strike group might comprise of 5 to 7 of these ships. At the center sits the aircraft carrier. These carriers can accommodate a maximum of 130 fighter jets. Flanking each side are 4 destroyers. They could be the Arleigh-Burke-class destroyers, predominantly used for anti-air warfare. Leading the battleship at the front is a Tikhonov class, CRUISER. These ships are multi-mission, covering air warfare, undersea warfare, launching torpedoes, naval surface fire support, and surface asterisk warfare. At the back is the frigate class, generally serving as a light escort with a focus on anti-air roles with a lesser degree of capability than larger ships. Depending on the mission, nuclear-powered Virginia-class submarines, animated in our recent videos, can also be added to the carrier strike group to seek out and destroy hostile surface ships and submarines. A typical carrier air wing can include the Grumman E-2 Hawkeye. This aircraft flies ahead of the aircraft carrier, scanning the battlefield with its large red radar. Simply put, acts as a scout, providing early warnings of any enemy activity up to almost 100 kilometers away. They even have a mini cargo plane, the C-2 Greyhound, which they use to transport equipment and personnel, while the 6 Seahawk helicopters are designed for rescue and anti-submarine missions. These Seahawk helicopters can be launched from a specific part of an aircraft carrier. We also made a deep dive into the sea, air, and land components of the nuclear asterisk triad. So, subscribe for more videos to not miss a beat. Asterisk.